Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here. This is actually the first time I get to address an audience, being able to say that the company I founded was acquired. We closed not too long ago. Very exciting. My first successful exit. So I'm excited to share with you a lot of the things that I've learned along the way that really helped me get up and going and essentially help this acquisition happen. So it's very exciting to me to share this information. Here's my agenda for today. I'm going to share a little bit about my background. I'll go over some information about selling, just specifically selling. And then I'm going to talk to you about selling across the stages of your venture. Now, this is a little wrinkle that I'm throwing in here. I'm actually going to share with you something that I call Stephen's paradigms of a new venture. So just something I'm trying out, but I hope you like it. And along with that, some of the actual emails, pitch decks, things that really worked. Okay, so it's stuff that you can take right away. And then if time permits, we'll do a little bit of Q&A. My background, undergrad here at UC Berkeley, go Bears. How many students? Go Bears, nice, great. Excited for the school year to start next week, right? I think is the new semester. I started in economics. Any economics majors? Sorry, I apologize. I transferred out of economics really quickly, so boring. But and then I ended up doing interdisciplinary studies, which was kind of interesting. And all of my classes actually came from either Haas undergrad, the CET program, so some of those engineering courses, and then history and the like. So that was kind of my background for undergrad. Business school, I went to Cornell University, the Johnson School out in Ithaca, New York. If any New Yorkers? Okay, a couple New Yorkers. Okay, great. It's cold as hell there in the spring. Let me tell you. In February, it sucks. Career-wise, I started my career actually in sales. And it was in direct sales specifically. I sold consumer products, which is a fancy way of saying knives, to people in their homes with a company called Cutco Cutlery. Have any of you ever heard of this? Oh, a few. Any of you sold Cutco? Okay, you were warned against us. Well, that is what I did. I did that for a while, and I was okay, I guess you would say. It was very successful, actually. Was the first district manager ever to be inducted into the company's Hall of Fame. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, after consumer products, I got into software here in the Bay Area. Just thought it was a cool thing to do. I sold software as a service products to enterprise clients. It was very interesting. I almost didn't even get this job. When I interviewed for the job, the hiring manager told me, no, you're not qualified for this job. And someone who interviewed me on the team, interestingly enough, I kind of had a great interview with, reached out to her afterwards, and she ended up hiring me for her team instead of the other person. Did really, really well there. And then it was actually as the economy was in this huge downturn, what was this, 08, 09, that I decided, you know what, the economy kind of stinks. I didn't really care for the company I was at the time. So I decided it's time to do something new. And I wanted to figure out if I could do anything, what would it be? And it was really about making an impact. And that's kind of how I got into renewables, specifically the solar space. I started as director of sales and marketing for a solar company out in Concord, if you know where Concord is. It happened to be, if any of you are familiar with SunPower Corporation, they're one of the large panel manufacturers. It was their very first residential dealer in the United States, so I had the opportunity to work there as director of sales and marketing. And then I did that's when I decided to go to business school. I was in Cornell, and it was first month of second year, and we had a class. It was called New Venture Management. And the whole idea of this class was to write a business plan. I was trying to figure out what should I write a business plan on. I had all of these ideas, and I wrote this crazy business plan. And I remember pitching it. They had these advisors come in, and I pitched my idea. And my presentation skills, I got an A, but the idea, which was a solar data type of company, I got a C. In fact, it was a C minus. And the comments that I heard were, that idea is horrible. Now, you have to remember, this was back just after Solyndra had tanked. Like, all the VCs were pulling out of clean tech. I mean, it was just a nightmare. They're like, the idea is horrible. No one will ever buy that solar data. It's a fad. Just horrible idea. So I was like, oh, okay. But I had to make the business plan anyway. And what I decided to do was, well, you know what? If I'm doing this business plan, I might as well see if the idea actually works. And so I started it. And started it while I was in school. Lo and behold, it worked. We got our first customer, and then our first 50 customers, and our first couple hundred customers. And the great thing about it was I had outsourced a lot of stuff, so I didn't have to do it. So I essentially was at business school and getting this income coming in from this little business that I had started. And once I graduated from business school, I had an opportunity to go into consulting or banking or some of the other things that people typically do after business school. But I was like, you know what? How many times in my life am I really going to have an opportunity to just kind of go after something? I had, was free to do whatever I wanted, and so I kind of went and did it and went really, really well. Found a great co-founder to turn the company into something I think a lot more special. And we just sold the company. Like I said, we closed December 5th. Press release comes out tomorrow, so I'm pretty excited about that. So let's talk a little bit about selling. Sales. How many of you ever sold anything before in your life? Okay, good. Who has never sold anything? Okay, you're probably not right there, but everything that we do in sales, it comes down to communication. I want to go what sales is not first. This is not sales. Not sales. Selling is not something that you try to push on people. It's not trying to make someone do something they don't want to do. It's not trying to persuade them to buy something they don't want to buy or to have this crappy product. That is not sales. What sales is communication. It's the ability to share ideas, share thoughts, products that influence someone in a positive way so that they see your point of view and then act. That's what sales is. In fact, almost everything we do involves sales. Okay, those of you who said you've never sold anything, have you ever asked someone out on a date? That's a sale, right? Have you ever asked for something in a class, maybe an extended deadline? That's a sale. Anything that involves communication, that is a sale. So let me give you this rule that I think is really important to understand. And as you have a venture and you go out there and you start pitching and talking to customers, it's what I call the 20-60-20 rule of sales. And 20% of the people that you present to, that you show to, no matter how good your product is or your service, but 20% of the people that you show will always buy. Now, I should caveat this, that is assuming you have a good product, okay? I mean, you could have a bad product, but I'm putting that assumption out there, that you have a good product or a good service that people actually want. 20% of the people will buy, no matter what, just because the product is good or the service is something that's needed. They're just going to buy. They're really fun people, by the way, to actually call upon when you know they're going to buy. There's also, though, 20% of the people out there that will absolutely never buy, regardless of what you do, what you say, how good your product is. They're just not an early adopter for whatever product or service you have, so they're not going to buy from you. Now, it's important, especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs, to not get caught up if you end up seeing all of these people or all of these people? Because you can get false positives, right? Oh my gosh, this is the best product ever. Everybody's buying, and then, it turns out it really isn't. Same thing, you may have nobody buying it, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And you're just seeing the wrong people. So you have to keep that in mind. There's also 60% of the people in the middle, and these people can go either way. And this is where you, as an entrepreneur or a salesperson or whatever role you are, this is where you come into play. It's having the skills to work with these people to get them to say yes, to buy your product. So in doing that, I'm going to give you 4 secrets. 4 secrets that will put you ahead of 80% of the salespeople in this world. In fact, as an entrepreneur, I can guarantee you, if you have these 4 secrets and you utilize them, you understand them, you will be well in the top 20, probably the top 10% of all entrepreneurs out there as far as sales skills. And here they are. Here are the 4 sales secrets. Rapport, AFTO, handle objections, and ask for referrals. These 4 things, these 4 secrets, are things that most people, most salespeople, are not very good at, or they just don't know how to do. So I'm going to teach you how to do them. First of all, rapport. What is rapport? Could someone give me a definition of rapport? Any ideas? Rapport.
Be able to relate to somebody.
Relate. Great. What else do we have in the back?
Sympathize with someone.
Sympathize. Okay, yeah. Sympathize or empathize. Any other ideas about rapport? Yeah.
Read the reactions.
Read reactions. Yeah. Read reaction. I think this is pretty good. I would say that these 3 all have good rapport. It's really about finding a common ground. A common ground. Now, this can't be forced. It has to be something that you find. In math, any engineers in the room? Okay. In math, they call it what? The least common denominator. Right? It's the same thing. You want to do that in all of your relationships, in all of your approaches. How do you do that? Well, here's how you do that, is you get people to talk about themselves. I can't tell you how many times, I've actually seen this when I train salespeople, is a salesperson will sit there and show up and throw up, is what we call this, where they actually get in front of the customer and they just start going off on everything about the company, the product. Oh my gosh, you're going to love this. Da, 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 da. And they're like, what? Okay, you don't ever want to do that. Typically, when you're first meeting someone, you want to ask them, so how are you? How are things? Find something that you can ask them about. If they go to Cal and you go to Cal, that's the first thing you talk about, right? You can always talk about how bad our football team is. Sorry. I hope there's no one from the football team here. I apologize. I'll still be there watching every game. Unfortunately, I have season tickets. But rapport. Be sure to listen. There's an adage everybody has heard, right? You have 2 ears. What is it? 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. That is extremely important, is those listening skills for sales. Again, most salespeople are just not very good at it. So you have to build rapport. AFTO. Key. AFTO stands for ask for the order. You have to ask people to purchase, to try it, to lean in, to get started, to go to the next step, to solidify things. There's all types of ways that you can ask, but they have to be asked. What does the Bible say about asking, right? Ask and you shall receive, right? Okay, sorry, I don't mean to be biblical, but it's a very, very true statement that you have to ask people to buy, to try, to do whatever. So you have to ask. And the key about asking, it's funny, on a little tangent, one of the best salespeople I have ever met in my entire life is the shyest, most quiet, unassuming salesperson you would have ever met. Okay? In fact, when I hired this salesperson, I literally thought he would sell nothing. Like, that was my expectation. Probably not a good expectation as a sales manager, but my expectation was the guy would not sell anything because he just didn't talk. I didn't think he had the right. Long story short, best salesperson I've ever had. And what it came down to was at the end of every presentation, he would sit and he'd go, "So, did you want to buy it?" And he would sit and nod. And customers would give objections and like, "Well, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, I want to wait," all these type of things, and he would just sit there. Because he was so shy, he wouldn't talk. And what would happen is after about 10 minutes, and it's the weirdest 10-minute experience I've ever had, the customers would finally go, "You know what, yeah, I'm going to get it." It was crazy. Crazy. Okay? So, but you have to ask. And you have to ask in a very confident manner. That is key. You have to be confident when you ask that customer to place their bet in you, to partner, to try. And, confidence is really a weird thing. Some people have it, some people don't. And in fact, some of you might even be thinking to yourself, "Well, gosh, Stephen, if I'm out there selling, what do I really have to be like confident in? This is all new. I've never done this before." And so let me tell you, well, first of all, there's room for some people in any group of people to kind of get offended at certain things. If you want to be one of those people that gets offended, this is the time you can get offended. But all of you probably know how we started as people, okay? As people, all of us, each one of you, started as a really tiny egg and a really tiny sperm. Really, well, it's probably, you can't even see it. It was really tiny. And so, at one point in your life, even if your father only had an average sperm count, which is about 320 million, you were in a competition. And you were in a competition with 320 million other individuals. You were in a race, and your little tail was a wiggling. You were like, "Out of my way, I gotta get there." Okay, and if you can't swim, you did at one point. I guarantee you did. Okay. So the next time someone tries to tell you you can't do it, you don't feel you have the confidence, whatever it is, you look yourself in the eye and you say, "Hey, I don't know what you're thinking, but I outswam 320 million people to get here. I can do it." Okay? Uphill. Okay? So anyway. So you have to be confident when you ask for the order. It's extremely important. The third thing is handling objections. Okay? A lot of people quit when the customer says, I just don't think it's the right time, or, I need to wait, or I can't afford it. They give some type of objection. And most salespeople pack up their bag, they pack up their demo, whatever they're doing if you're software, and they leave. Okay? Or if you're like this person, Alex, you just sit there and nod because you're too shy to say anything else and they end up buying. But objections are key, and you need to understand this about objections. Objections are good. It's actually good if a customer says, "Oh, I can't afford that," or I really need to think about that. In fact, there are three, pretty basic objections. One is the money or the budget. I can't afford it. The second objection is what we call the use issue. I don't really know if I'm going to use that. Sometimes that's really a smoke screen as well, especially in software. And then the time issue, not right now, maybe a little later. And so when you hear these things, you should reframe them in your mind as questions. So if someone says, "I can't afford it," in your mind, you need to say, what they're really saying is, "How can I afford this?" Okay? And so I'll give you now what's called the objection cycle. And this, by the way, is gold. This right here, if you understand how to do this, you'll close a lot of things. You want to date without, girl? This will work, I'll guarantee you. The first thing is someone gives an objection is you have to listen. And when you listen, you don't talk. Many people listen with the objective to try and respond instead of listening with the objective of understanding. So when someone gives you an objection, you have to listen so that you understand, not so that you can respond. And there's a big difference. After they've told you everything that they want to tell you, you acknowledge. Okay, I completely understand. So what you're saying is that right now is not a good time because you have an upcoming budget crunch and whatever the objection is. Okay. The next step is to ask yes questions. But this was something that you really see how your organization could use internally. Oh yeah, we really could see how we'd use it, this and that. It's just our budget thing. And if you did have it, you can see how the adoption rate internally could go up. Is that, totally, Stephen, whatever. Okay, so the next step is clarify. So to clarify, it's really then about getting it into your budget so that it doesn't impact this quarter, but maybe we could push it to the second or third quarter. Is that? Absolutely. And then you find the solution and re-ask for the order. Okay? And if they give you another objection, what do? You go back around. Right? That's the objection cycle. This process, if used properly, you will increase your sales dramatically. Because realize most people don't go to professional courses or spend a lot of times how to be a not buyer. Okay? When you learn the skills like this that enable you to break down the communication barriers to get to the real issue. And maybe the issue for that person was, okay, well, what if we place an order now, but we invoice you in Q3 so we can get started and have it down the road? Oh, well, maybe why didn't you say that was an option? Okay, maybe that is. I don't know what it is. But that is the entire objection cycle and how it can be used. The last key, secret, referrals. Sometimes, especially with the company I just started, it almost felt like I was stealing when I would ask a customer for referral and they would just give me people and there would be no competitors in the deal. Because most people don't ask for referrals. Referrals are huge. Huge, huge, huge. Referrals will get you more investors. Referrals will get you, more advisors. Referrals will get you introductions. Referrals will get you all types of things. So it's important to ask for referrals.
Stephen?
Yes?
Can you just give an example of that?
Yeah, in fact, I'm gonna get to that in just a little bit. I promise. I'm kind of setting some stuff up. So make sure you're asking for referrals. Referrals are key. All right, so that was a little background on selling. Now I want to share with you selling across the stages of your venture, or again, what I'm calling Stephen's paradigms of a new venture. There's 3 paradigms. Number 1 is inception paradigm. Beginning, the start, getting things up and running. Number 2 paradigm, customer validation. Third paradigm is scale. All of these paradigms, every single one of them, has a different sales aspect that I just talked about linked to it. When you're in the inception paradigm, for example, when you're in the inception paradigm, there's a certain skill set or a certain sales focus. When you're in customer validation, there will be a different sales focus. And scale, it's a even different sales focus. Now, all of these paradigms can coexist. That's one thing to understand as a new venture. You will have days as an entrepreneur where you're like in all three paradigms in seemingly the exact same moment in time. It's crazy. But these are the paradigms. Now, before I get into the next topic, I'm going to give you what I would say is the greatest sales and startup tip I've ever received. Like, this is, if you take nothing away from today other than the next thing that I show you, I promise it may totally redo some of your thinking. This is huge. In fact, this is really profound. Okay, and just so you know, I normally don't even give this, but I'm giving it today because, well, you guys are awesome, and I just want to share. I'm so excited. But this is something I normally don't give out. This one thing will dramatically change your startup life. And it is this. Every customer, every investor, every recruit to bring onto your team, every potential customer, whatever, they all listen to one radio station and one radio station only. It's called WII-FM. That stands for What's in It for Me. This is profound. Whenever you're building a product, whenever you're giving a presentation, you need to ask yourself, what's in it for the customer? What does this person want from the outcome? That changed the product kind of that we built. That is that's how we were acquired. It literally can refocus everything. So you have to understand this. WII-FM. What's in it for me? So let me show you how this works. During inception, your sales focus is on recruiting. Recruiting talent, co-founders, advisors, seed or angel investors. That is your sole focus during inception, is getting the thing up and going. And you'll have nothing as important as building your team. This is actually my team. This is our intern, Patrick. He's a student here at UC Berkeley. Danor, my co-founder. Rosanna, our communications director, and myself. We have one other intern that wasn't there when we did this. But recruiting talent. How do you sell and recruit talent? Well, this is a really complex, I could spend probably 2 hours talking about this, but recruiting talent is really about two things. One, it's about sharing the vision and having people buy in, right? They see where this can go, what potential it has. The second way you recruit talent is trust. Now, I'm going to give you a little story of Danor. So Danor and I, we both went to Cornell together. We graduated in 2012. And Danor, when he moved back out here, it's kind of an interesting situation. He wanted to get into renewable energy, but he didn't know what he was doing. I had this PV solar report thing that I was doing. So he asked, he's like, Steven, hey, can I just work for you for free while I find jobs and figure things out? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And there was it was really, really fantastic. And as we started kind of working together, we had this idea for what turned into Sunible, which is the company that we co-founded. However, during that time, Danor, he's married. He's not an American citizen. He's actually Indian. And so he was worried about getting his visa. And as we were formulating starting Sunible, he came to me and said, Steven, look, I want to do this. I want to be an entrepreneur, but I need my H-1B visa. Getting it as a startup is really, really hard. Would you mind if I try to maybe get another job? Now, understand that as a founder and CEO telling someone who may be founding a company with you that, yeah, it's okay to look for another job, that probably would not happen in most places. In fact, I've seen some startups over the last 2 years just implode. I have a friend that they're in lawsuits. It's bad. It's ugly. But I said, Denor, no problem. Do what you got to do. And he came to me. He sent me an email one day that said, Stephen, I found this job at a company where I knew someone. It was called Sungevity. They're in Oakland. Could you send me an introduction? Now, I don't normally write long emails like this, but I'm going to share with you the actual email that I said. By the way, don't mind the typos and the grammar. I apologize. Okay, I wrote it really quick. But this is the email that I sent to the head of people on behalf of Denor. Okay, and I actually copied Denor on this email. And I share this to you for one really important reason. Okay, when I sent this, I also copied Denor. Now, you'll see on here some of the things, I don't know where the little light thing is, some of the things that I say about Denor. Highest recommendation. Let me ask you, think to yourself, do you think this builds trust? That I was willing to say, Denor, you have to do what you have to do, and I totally understand. Here's what Susan responded. Thanks, Steve. It's always fun copying. We love referrals. They actually couldn't do the H-1B, so it didn't work out. Thank God for me. But I share that with you so that you understand how you can build trust with people. And that is making sure they know how important they are and that you're on their side. Right? That told Denor that, hey, Denor, I think you're an A player, but I'm willing to help you do whatever you need to do. Really key. So that's part of recruiting talent. Also, people ask us all the time, how do you get advisors or mentors? And I'm going to give you an example of how to send emails here. A lot of people don't really understand how to send good emails that actually get response. Okay? This is, and actually you can see here, February 19th. This is right when we were starting the company. We incorporated in March, so we were just looking for an attorney. And by the way, this is Scott. He's at Wilson Sonsini. They're a really big tech company, and I can get into it. I could talk forever. Anyway, but what I want you to see here is that this email is 4 sentences. That's it. A lot of people try and send these really complex, show up and throw up type of emails that are not very effective. This one works. That's what I sent. I saw you worked in energy and renewables, as well as worked with startups. Plus, we had a Berkeley connection. He went to UC Berkeley. By the way, this connection, I used it. Oh my gosh. This, and make sure you use your connection. I found a PV solar report 2 years ago. We're now about to pivot into the solar consumer space. We're looking for an attorney. Can we connect? That was it. Response. Stephen, thanks for connecting. I'd be happy to learn more about your endeavor. Please get in touch at your convenience. Sent the next day. Okay. That's how you send emails. Okay? If you're trying to put your pitch deck and all this other information, it's not really very effective. I'll give you another example. Recruiting angel and seed investors. Our first MVP, I was listening to the talk before mine, they talked about having MVP. We didn't actually have that when we started doing our seed round. Now, it's kind of weird for us when we pitched Wilson. I actually made it so that they were trying to court us because we were looking at other attorneys. But we didn't want to spend the money on actually building technical products, so we did this. We used mock-ups. These are the 4 mock-ups that we used to land Wilson and our first $50,000 of seed investment. It's them. Nothing fancy. Nothing too complicated. And we showed them, walked through the process, and people were like, oh my gosh, it's funny. Wilson Sonsini, they have a standard, deferral and all this type of stuff. We got 4 times that amount, plus we got them to give us money, all based on mock-ups. All right? So this is how you do it. And so think about this from your perspective in the businesses that you're going to start. Customer validation. this is key. Now, for me, it was a little different because I had started this in business school and we already started getting customers. But I want to give you an example of how not to get customers. This is a fail. Total fail. This is one that I got. Stephen, I would like to introduce you to my company's service. Okay? If you go back and look at this afterwards, what you're going to notice is that every one of my emails starts with you. There's a you in the very first sentence. I probably should have pointed that out earlier. But you'll notice this as we go through. This guy focused all on him. Once I read that, I was like, don't care. But look at how complex he gets. What is this? This is crap. Don't do this. Here's one that I used actually just recently. This was a couple of weeks ago. We're looking for financiers so that we could get vendor referral fees for our new company. I sent this to Mel here. Hi, Mel. Would you have time to chat about financing? We're looking for a loan finance partner. Would you? It's about you financing. By the way, and notice, actually right here, what her title is. And this is part of using LinkedIn. I mean, I lived in LinkedIn for hours and hours and hours. But I found the right person, right? Strategic advisor at Admiral's Bank. Okay, well, she's probably going to be important about a strategic partnership, isn't she? So I sent her, we're looking for a finance partner. She said, yes. Does tomorrow work? This is like a few minutes later. All right? So that's how you send emails. Many people try and just give way too much information and it's not very valuable. Here's one. How do you get referrals? So this is it. This is how you get referrals, and it's literally like taking candy from a baby. So Sunrun was one of our customers that I had landed. They're a solar finance company. And I had talked to Bill, this is Bill, about, hey, it'd be really great if some of your partners, started using our service. And it'd also be really good, Bill, I'm saying Bob. It'd also be really good, Bill, for you, because if they had more customers, that means they'd originate more loans. Do you think Bill would really like for them to originate more loans if that's what they do, loan services? Absolutely, right? So that's what I did, is I asked him then, could you email someone at, this company is called Real Goods, someone at Real Goods, and let them know that we're going to be offering this service. And you can see, here's the email that Bill wrote. Okay, it's a little long, but I think it really encompasses everything that I wanted. And I coached him a little bit. Make sure you tell him that we're from PV Solar Report. It's really focused on acquisition. Hi, Stephen. Hope you're doing well. Or this is to Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Hope you're doing well. Want to introduce you to store CEO startup Sunible. CEO is building an interesting web experience for both educate consumers about interesting lead gen source. I think you'd be interested in hearing this proposition. Now, when that email came out, I didn't get to it till a little bit later because I was probably doing something. But anyway, so here was my response. So here's how when someone sends you an introduction, here's the proper way to respond to that. Thank you for the introduction, Bill. All right. Hi, Cheryl. Nice to meet you. I'd love to chat with you about what we're doing. Cheers. Okay, I didn't go on. I didn't try and blab. I didn't send a pitch deck. Just it. And here was her response almost an hour later. Hi, Stephen. I'm all about similar solar process Wednesday through Thursday afternoon. Will those times work for you? Yes, it did. They were a client. Really, really simple. All right, but that's how you do it. This is the proper process of getting referrals. Scale. So let's talk a little bit about scale. Scale is really about getting funding. This is really interesting. So after we raised our first $50,000, we raised another $100,000, and then we decided to go out and actually, raise a couple $1 million. And to do that, we targeted some VCs. So I'm going to show you my actual. Now, I should preface this. Again, living on LinkedIn, I identified a couple of VC firms and specifically some VCs that I wanted to connect with. The only problem is VCs, they get emails out the wazoo. Like, they get all types of random stuff. So what I did for this VC was there was an event that I saw they were registered to. Okay? And of course, I went to that event. And I was a stalker, basically. I walked around the event, and I'll never forget, I kind of knew what the guy looked like. His name is Nat. And I saw him walking by. I was like, Nat Goldhaber. And he's like, what? You know, I'm like, hi, I'm Steven Torres, blah, 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 blah. And so we just struck up a conversation there. And he was getting ready to leave, but he needed, you know, he's like, oh, I'm getting ready to take off, you know, no worries. And I just said, oh, well, where are you going? He's like, well, I live in Oakland, but I need to just get a ride back to the BART. I said, no problem. I'm leaving too. What a coincidence. And so I had the opportunity to drive him to the BART station. Now, I wasn't really prepared to leave. There was other people I wanted to, but when you have an opportunity like that, so here's the email that I sent to him the next day. Nat, it was a pleasure meeting you tonight. Oh, it was that night, actually. It was a pleasure meeting you tonight at the Volt Solar event. I would love to get together over coffee to bounce what we were doing off you and get your feedback. Again, WIIFM, what's in it for me? One of the things that I found out is VCs have huge egos. They really do. They don't want to miss anything. And so when you ask for feedback and bounce ideas off them, typically you could get it. So that looks like the next day, here was the email that his assistant said, hello, Stephen. Nat would like to invite you to coffee at our office. Right. Now, again, I wasn't asking them to review a pitch deck. I wasn't asking them at this point for anything other than what? Coffee and to bounce some ideas off of them to get feedback. That's how you do it. So I'm going to show you now the actual pitch deck that got us acquired. You know, a lot of people talk about you need this many slides, you need all this type of stuff. This pitch deck was 9 slides, and the first slide and the last slide is a summary, and the first one is just an introduction. You know, it's just the title slide. So in actuality, there was 7 slides, and really it was about the first 2. It was problem, solution, what we need to get it done. There's our financials. That was our ask, 2.5. That was the deck that worked. All right? So, you know, success and failure, it really, as I've gone through this experience, I've realized that it's really a fine line between success and failure. There was another company that was considered our competitor that they, you know, closed, actually 2 of them that have already closed down. One of them, you know, they kind of were acquired, but they were acquired for like nothing. And all these type of things. And I look back and I think, how were we really able to do this? You know, granted, we didn't sell for $1 billion. Okay, it was in the tens of millions, but it was good. It was a really good, successful exit, part cash, part equity, all those fun stuff. But how are we able to do it? And I can really get back down to that tip that I shared, WIIFM. If you go back and you look at all the emails, you'll notice it was a pleasure meeting with you. Nice to meet you. You. Bull, right? Nothing. No you. I saw you. I hope you. It's really interesting. It really comes down to the ability to sell and communicate ideas in a way that influence someone, as I said earlier, to act. So that's all I have for tips. We have about 5 minutes, I guess, of Q&A. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them. Yes? Oh, sorry, Mike.
Could you please? Yes. Could you please repeat the selling cycle and give maybe an example for us to understand better? Thank you.
The sales cycle. Yeah, what you're talking about is the objection cycle, correct? Yeah. Okay. So here's the objection cycle. Listen, acknowledge, yes questions, clarify, solution, ask for the order. I tried to do it earlier today without probably getting too much. It's hard to do like on the spot. It's a lot easier if you actually have a product. So I'm going to default back into knives just because that's what all is coming to my mind right now. The customer says, the knives are too sharp. Well, actually, someone said the knives are too sharp. You're like, bullshit. That's why you buy them, right? What's that?
Want to do a demo with me?
It'd be, yeah. I'm just trying to think. So I want to wait. No problem, Mrs. Jones. I totally understand how you feel. No one likes to make a decision they might regret, but you really like the product, right? Yes. And if you had it, you'd use it. Oh, absolutely. So the only thing right now is you're just a little unsure if you should get it now. Just is it maybe because of the price, or so what I'm doing is I'm teasing. I'm trying to find the solution. Well, yeah, it's that, and well, yeah, basically it's the price. Oh, okay, no problem. I totally understand. These aren't cheap. They're not really meant to be. But again, you really did like the product and you're going to use it. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. So do you think you would need all of the knives right now, or maybe could we get started with a couple and then add on later? Oh, that's an option. I thought all I had to do was all this really big set. Oh no, that's definitely an option. So let me show you something else. Here's one that doesn't include this, this, and this. So that's kind of the way that it goes. But it's really, once you practice it in certain situations, it'll come up there. I hope that probably didn't help at all. Any other questions? Yeah.
So how do you know when to give up? We've heard the recording of the Comcast guy. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Some Comcast customer service guy was just not willing to give up, and they recorded it and put it on the internet. Terrible press, but how do you know when to give up?
Give up in what sense? Like give up with a sale, give up with your endeavor,
with a sale.
I guess you'll know. Like, usually people say, I think it's time for you to leave. that I've had that happen many times. Yeah, it's a tough question.
I was just going to say, don't you think it's easier to kind of sell the benefit of the product than the actual product itself, like how it applies to that person's life and how it can make their lives easier?
Sure, absolutely. People buy benefits, they don't buy features. So typically, and I didn't. I was just trying to get to the cover the basics, but yeah, that's absolutely true. People are buying solutions or things that solve problems. They're not necessarily buying the product. Nobody buys a drill because they want a drill. They buy a drill because they want a hole, right? So you have to remember that. Yeah. Oh.
So you went through how to sell products, how to sell ideas. How do you sell yourself? That's a bit self-serving, even more than it is selling a
sure.
thing, right? How do you sort of get a person interested in you? Maybe
give me an example. Why would you need them to get interested in you?
Say for a job.
Job. Okay. This is an interesting question. One thing is make sure your LinkedIn profile is kick-ass, right? Like, don't just have nothing. Make sure you have like papers and things that you've read, because people will do that. Like every time someone sends me a LinkedIn request, I always view their profile. So that's one way that you can get people interested. But again, people aren't interested in you. They're interested in them, right? So if you're reaching out to someone for a job, it's, hey, Bob, I noticed you wrote this paper. You're in charge of this. I think that's a really fascinating field. I found this. Could you share with me your thoughts on it? Right? Because they don't care about you. They care about them. And that's how you get them interested in you, is you get them talking about them to you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any last questions? No last questions. All right, guys. Hey, go Bears. Thank you so much.